Hi folks, I'm Mike and I hope you're well. Welcome to this live stream, the first of a series of live streams where we're going to be featuring your music. These featured artist live streams are here so that we can both play your music and expose your music, but also with my guests, my wonderful guests that I'm going to have on each show, we're going to be discussing some of the issues that you had in producing that music and try and give you some words of wisdom or maybe just comfort. We'll see which way we go with that. Before we get stuck in, I just want to say thank you to all of the people who are already here in the chat. I'll quickly just say hello to a few familiars here. This is Mimo Japan. He's in the Tokyo village at the moment. He's in the Olympic village in Tokyo at the moment, he said. He's our moderator in the chat there, so watch out for him. Don't tick him off. You might just disappear. Jimmy C, nice to see you here, mate. Always good to see you. A few more. We've got Happy Ron. Happy Ron is happy always. I feel happy when Ron's here. Nice to see you, Ron. And one more before we get stuck in a little bit here. I'll just go randomly to g'day to Willie from South Africa. We don't often get South Africans on the show. We get a lot of Canadians. We get a lot of English. We get a few Australians, all kinds of different people. So nice to see some South Africans in here. We do have a couple of guests on today from different parts of the world. One from the UK, the other one from Canada. So very sort of international for us tonight. Now, before we do press ahead and I introduce you to the first of my guests, I do need to say a quick thank you to my sponsor for the show, which is DistroKid. There's the VIP link. You know, if you follow that VIP link, which is also in the description down below, you can get 7% off. Cool. And it's already cheap. Anyway, no excuses. We'll talk a little bit about DistroKid here and there in the show. Now, I just want to just point to my notes here for a moment. So I've got a couple of other thank yous before I bring in my first guest. I just want to thank the people who entered. I think I put my first post about this out maybe 3 weeks or so ago. And I've had so many people have entered. Thank you so much. It's sort of a privilege to really listen to all of your music. Over the last week or so, and a little bit more than that, I got the chance to sit down and I listened through about 120 of them. And from those, I picked 20 for the next 4 shows. Now, if you haven't got picked for these shows, that doesn't mean you won't ever get picked. I've had to sort of juggle things around, make sure it's balanced with different genres of music, different types of production, all that kind of thing. So your song may still be played further down the line. If you haven't submitted a song yet, go ahead and submit one. I would love to hear more music from you guys, and let me know on the form, if you follow the link in the description down below, some of the issues and joys that you had in producing your music, and then we'd love to discuss those things on the show. So hopefully today we can be entertained and informed and educated, as well as having a bit of fun as well along the way. Talking about fun, I always have fun when I talk with this guy. My first guest on the show this evening, this morning, this afternoon, wherever you are in the world, is a chap who runs, I think, the best group on Facebook for home studio recording, and his name is Ricky T. Brown. Ricky, how you going, mate?
How you doing?
I'm good. For a moment there, I was a bit worried we might have lost your dulcet tones.
No, not quite.
You've actually been on one of my shows before, a long time ago, when I was a smaller channel. Yeah,
so a couple of times actually.
Oh, well,
I think
I
you've
couldn't remember.
On there a couple of times. Yeah,
I can't remember. You're not that important. Get over yourself.
Oh, thanks. Thanks.
Ricky, I was watching an interview with you the other day. Well, I was just saying, I think your channel is really the best one on Facebook, which means you're the best home recording studio Facebook group in the world.
Whoa.
How
okay.
About
Didn't think of it like that, but yeah.
I'm going to go out on a limb here. In the universe, in the whole universe, yours is the best Facebook home recording studio group.
Really appreciate that.
No, and I'm serious about that, though. I hang out in there when I get time because of the vibe. It's just the nicest. You said in an interview the other day when I was watching you that you wanted to create a group which wasn't as toxic as the other groups on Facebook.
Yeah, that's the truth, buddy. that group shall remain nameless. But if you, I just saw that if you were a newbie, it was the bloody Wild West in there, and you go in there, and if if you don't know enough, oh
Yes.
my gosh, it
Or
was
own enough.
yeah, you know those action films, and then there's a flipping lake full of crocs, and then somebody gets thrown in and they go into a frenzy. I mean, at times it was like that, So
Yeah, man.
in seeing that really inspired me. So you know what? I need to be part of something that looks after everybody, especially the people just coming into it. Because I've been in the game for a long time, and I guess I'm at that point now where I've accumulated a level of experience, and people are just coming into it. They could benefit from that, So that's where I get my buzz from doing it. It's knowing that I'm in a position to actually help somebody on their way, and it's also a hub for like-minded people who are genuinely interested in helping others. So that was the way that we kicked it off.
Good stuff, man. And I just want to remind people that I've got a link for that Facebook group in the description down below. And do go ahead if you're on Facebook. I know not everyone uses Facebook, but if you are on Facebook, go ahead and join. Tell them Mike sent you, and Ricky too. And but we definitely not just blowing smoke up your ass here. It really is a great group and a great resource, and it's nice to go to a place which is friendly and welcoming. And I know one of the moderators on your channel has recently started making YouTube videos as well. I'm sorry,
Steve Hershey. Yeah,
that's right, Steve. And they're good fun to watch. So if you can remind me, Ricky, I'll put a link for that YouTube channel as well in the description later on, so people can go along and take a look at that, because it's a new channel, and I love to get people to support new channels, which are good new channels, when they can. So that's Ricky. Now, next up, I forgot to show you a little clip, Ricky. Sorry about that, but
that's all right.
That's okay. Sorry, we need to move on to Dan. Dan is from a YouTube channel called Lonely Rocker, and I'll just get rid of you for a moment, Rick, if you don't mind. Yeah, he's got his T-shirt. Good. And Dan, for me, I was introduced to Dan's channel in the way many people were introduced to Dan's channel, and that's by looking for solutions for room treatment, like the stuff you can see behind me here. And I think he's probably got one of the most well-known videos on YouTube about room treatment. So I'll bring him up here. He's from like I say, the channel called The Lonely Rocker. Dan
What's
the
up,
man.
Mike? We're here. The show's finally starting.
Yes, yeah. And now we've got the good-looking ones on. Dan,
this is my COVID face. What do you think?
I introduced you as the go-to man for room treatment, and you're in a room with no room treatment.
Yes, I have no room treatment. My apologies for the echo.
Can I quickly show people why? I'm just going to play a little short clip from one of your recent vlogs. You don't normally do vlogs, but you are at the moment. For this reason, take a look at this, folks. We'll just bring this up here.
We have a nice kitchen right where I want to put the desk. And people are going to hate me for this. Maybe I'll start getting some hate mail or something. I don't know. But it's a nice kitchen. Unfortunately, I didn't want a kitchen. We looked at a bunch of different houses, and the one we chose just happened to have a nice kitchen. This was a full in-law suite down here. Yeah, I kind of hate it. Everyone's like, oh, it's such a shame. It's such a shame. It's such a beautiful kitchen. But the truth is we have a kitchen upstairs, and we really don't need another kitchen.
We don't need another kitchen.
Who needs even one kitchen? Why would you have any kitchen instead of a studio? I don't understand that at all.
I think bread's absorbent enough, right? Yeah, so
we'll get onto the subject of room treatment a little bit later. We're going to be discussing that with both of you guys. It does come up in one of the songs that I'll be playing later. But thank you so much for joining us, Dan. We'll bring Ricky back in as well. The three amigos. We've got me here from Australia. We've got Dan there. Oh no, pointing the wrong way. Dan there from Canada. Ricky there from the UK. Would you know what? Here's an interesting thing. We all share the same Queen.
I was going to say, we're all part of the Commonwealth.
Well, yeah.
About that. We're Queen sharing, which
God
in some clubs in
the
San
Queen.
Francisco means something completely different.
Indeed. It does.
But we're the only flag without any blue in it. I think we're starting to,
All right. There's a whole bunch of people thinking now, has Canada got the same Queen as England? I didn't know that.
Depends who you ask.
Indeed.
So thanks for joining me today, guys. We are going to be listening to some music from viewers from my channel. All kinds of different levels today. All kinds of different interesting aspects to the production. For the viewers who are watching, my guests here, Dan and Rick, have not heard any of these songs at all, so they're kind of in the hot seats here. And we're going to kick off with the first one. I'm just going to look at my notes here, guys. Yes, I've got notes. I'm getting all professional now. It says introduce Dan. Yep, done that. Introduce Ricky. Done that. Okay. So for the first song, I didn't know when I first listened to this song that it was from some fellow Australians hailing from Queensland. I didn't know that until like today kind of thing when I was looking through some of the notes. They have had a little bit of success with this song on Facebook. I think they had about 40,000 views on this song on Facebook. And they've given me some notes on their production. I think it's quite interesting. So first of all, the way they normally start things off is the guitarist starts off with a riff or something, and he'll record using a Focusrite 2i2, which is kind of a classic of the age. And he uses Cakewalk for that. Then they'll record the acoustic guitars using the 2i2 again, and a lovely old SM57, which many of us use on acoustic guitars. Then goes ahead, records electric guitars straight in. Dan, I know Dan's a very much a tube guy here, likes his amplifiers, so we might get a little bit of controversy. But they record those straight into the 2i2, and they use an amp sim in there which is called TH3. Now, you guys might not know, but TH3 comes free with Cakewalk as well. So all free so far. They also record the bass straight in. They don't use any effects. DI straight in. I think DI bass can work really, really well under lots of circumstances. Personally, then they use. They've got some strings on there, which are the strings which come with Cakewalk. Again, a virtual instrument comes free with Cakewalk. They've got drums. They use the free MT Power drums. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that plugin at all. I've covered it on the channel a little bit. They are drums which are quite sort of not specific, but they lean themselves towards rock music. Okay. So that's that. MIDI was obviously used for those things, and one thing they did mention that all the MIDI is actually played and not programmed, which may be an interesting thing. Now, finally, the vocals. The vocals are the only part which are not recorded using any of that setup. The vocals, I believe, were produced in a studio in Queensland called Liberty Studio Productions. A producer there called Rick Scullen, and that may be an interesting topic in itself. So enough chat. I wanted to give you that bit of background. I had on my notes here, play the song first, then explain. I got that wrong already, didn't I? So there you go. I'm not
After
perfect.
a roaring start.
Let's listen to this song. It's from the Geringer Project. It's called Ticking Clock.
Through the glass, the clock is ticking, time is moving too fast. On and on, the hands don't stop, never getting back the hours we lost. And my heart cries out, is there nothing more than cries out, I have nothing more to give. And my soul cries
Okay, thanks to the Geringer project. I just want to say I didn't mention this before, guys, and I should mention that the links to all of these will be in the description down below, right after the show. For various reasons I won't go into now. I haven't put them in before the live show, but I wanted to make sure they do get played on the show. So do follow the links. They've just released another song today as well, which I quickly looked at. Had an awesome video as well. Check that out. And another thing I want to mention, because there was a comment here. I'll just pop it up here quickly, if I can do that. Recorded live, missing mids and highs, some clipping, but we're judging the recording of the song. I just want to mention here with that kind of thing, obviously this is being streamed live, and YouTube's compression stuff is not great, and streaming live as well. I don't think we're necessarily getting the best quality in terms of audio, but I'd definitely recommend, if you want to hear the song in more of its full glory, then follow the link in the description later on when I put it there. Okay, so that said, let's go over to Eeny, Meeny, Miny, Mo. I'm going to go over to Rick first. How you going, Rick? What do you reckon, mate?
What a really nicely crafted song. It had everything that you might expect from a traditional rock band, but I particularly like the vocal performance was really on it. I like what he was doing. I know what you mean about you mentioned the sound quality of what YouTube does to audio. It was my feeling that there was maybe a little bit of high end that was missing from the whole mix, which tells me that's likely what the problem is, because it's consistent across the whole mix. So it's likely that it's something like that. But yeah, I really like that. I know people often assume that Rick, he's got to be into like hip hop, but I suppose the baseball cap, is kind of misleading.
Are you accusing us of profiling you, Ricky?
Oh, people do it all the time, mate. But that's okay, because I like surprising them. Yeah. As far as genre goes, I love this genre. It's one of the things that I do, and so I can listen to this and really enjoy it for what it is. They did a really good job with that, as far as I'm concerned. Love it. It's great.
Good stuff. I'm going to quickly bring Dan in there as well. Dan, this is a bit more your, not only, Ricky was saying people might assume that he's not into rock. I'd assume you're not into this sort of music just because your age, basically. I think this guy's too old to like. He's off.
Don't upset me. Don't upset me.
But I know this to be more your genre of music, and in fact, you're probably a bit more experimental than this in lots of ways as well. But yeah, what was your initial thoughts on that?
Well, listening to a song for the first time, even from bands I love, that first few seconds there's sort of an anticipation. So with a band that I've never heard of before, going in cold, but there's still that first 20, 30 seconds, like, you don't bob your head, and you listen, where's this going? But the first thing that caught me was when they hit the first hook. The dynamic just took off like a rocket, and I love that in music, where they just sort of lull you, kind of a little subdued, and then like bang, they smack you in the face. And that first chorus definitely hit me that way. So, cool.
And there was a good hook in it as well. That's the other thing, because lots of songs don't really get a hook. Now, listen, because of the way this is kind of going here, I do want to make clear to the people listening, and even to ourselves as people on this show, this is not a song contest. We're not trying to be judges on X Factor or anything like this. We're primarily just looking at what people are able to do from their home studios and what challenges they face. I get the feeling when I spoke with these guys that it wasn't so much challenge as fun, and what I was sort of interested in was the fact that they were using free. Cakewalk is a free door, and lots of free stuff, and using really probably the most popular audio interface on the planet, the 2i2, but I hope Focusrite aren't watching, kind of a limited audio interface, pretty straightforward. It hasn't got any bells and whistles on it, right? And from what I saw of photos of their setup, straight into a laptop, and using as we say, especially for guitarists to be then using I've lost the words, guitar th3, I've lost, I don't know, gone
The
blank. Sims, that's the one. Thank you very much, Dan, you rescued me. So yeah, I'm going to say that if I'd heard that without knowing any of that, it wouldn't have really occurred to me that they'd recorded it in such a basic fashion at all.
Well, that's the amazing thing. I mean, one thing I want to touch on, you talked about the interface, and that's a topic that you cover a lot on your channel, and I have covered a lot, and I get so many questions. And I always say, because people are so focused in on like the preamps and like, but the terminology preamps and interface is kind of not the same as you were running like a 2 preamp. You're not looking to create a sound with the preamps. You're more interested in an interface that has good headroom, so you're going to record clean. Gain staging, exactly. That's a topic that I've covered, we've talked about. So I don't think there's that much of a limitation using a 2i2 because Focusrite has good clean preamps. I mean, the Scarlett is sort of their mid-range or their lower range, but they still have good clean preamps. As long as you treat them nice, don't work them too hard, you're going to record cleanly. And in this case, as you said, the guitar player is using Sims, so you're just talking about a clean signal coming out of a guitar. It's not a lot to process that, right? Yeah. And it's hard to mess that up, right? Yeah. So I think that's a non-factor today. That's a non-factor. I don't think people need to overthink that.
Now, the actually, final part, carry on.
If I could just jump in there, I mean, this recording, this song is a great example of, a lot of people put great stock in having the most expensive interface that they can afford. But I challenge anyone. Can you tell what interface was used? Because ultimately, your judgment about how good the track is about what the performers have done with it. I mean, okay, then to a lesser degree, the mix, whether it's a nice balanced mix. But I challenge anybody to say, well, what interface was used on that track, and they won't be able to tell you, will they? Because
I was actually reading some research today, because I shouldn't be saying this with some of the audio interfaces that I review, but I was reading some research where they blind tested people with discrete inputs, or discrete preamps, I should say. And what's the opposite of discrete? Well, where it's just on a chip, So discrete is where they actually use, transistors, capacitors, and things like that, and then. I can't remember the terminology for the other thing. They're called ICs or whatever. But they did a blind test, and basically, no one could tell the difference at all. Like, just went 50-50.
Yeah, I always say my answer to the question, people ask me all the time, I said the best interfacers are the ones you don't notice. Yeah. If you're noticing the preamp, that probably means you're clipping. You're doing something wrong. Otherwise, you're not going to notice it.
Okay. Yeah. So now, before we sort of divert too much here, one of the main things that struck me though was that they did finish off the vocals in a studio, which and probably more importantly than that, the song was then they took the stems from Cakewalk. I've got to be careful when I say stems. They either took the stems or the multi-tracks. Who knows which it was? And they sent them off to a studio, and it was mixed there. So I want to ask you guys something on that. Can you mix and even master your own songs? That's a big question with lots to answer. But what do you reckon, Rick?
Something. I'll freely admit that. Producing, mixing. I'm uncomfortable with that. But when it comes to the mastering, it's really difficult for you to be completely objective about what you're doing, because that in previously used to be the domain of professionals who only focused on optimizing a mix for a format. So back in the day, it was for vinyl kind of thing, and cassette, because stuff that was released on cassette had a different kind of mastering process than those for vinyl
LPs.
But I think whilst we've been given the tools to do all these things, I'm still of the opinion that you're probably better off letting somebody else do it.
Okay.
And then, because you're just too invested in the track itself, you know, the writing and the playing and the mixing, and that's enough, you know.
Yeah.
You lost your your objectivity by the time you get to the point where, okay, then we need to master this, you know. So I know that some may disagree with what I'm saying, but I'm firmly of the belief that if you want the best results for what you're doing, give it to somebody else who knows what they're doing. Don't try to be everything, you know. The technology has moved us all into that direction. Yeah, you can do everything. We'll give you a plug-in. Yeah, you can do it. But the reality is,
I'm going to disagree with you slightly. I'm going to disagree with you slightly, just to be controversial.
Go on.
So the only thing I'd say is that I wouldn't say don't try mastering at all. I would say always master. For example, not when you're released. I think your argument is absolutely correct when you're releasing something. But let's say you're checking a mix and you want to send it off to the rest of the band to have a bit of a listen, or maybe so I would do at least quick masters on your demos when you're showing them around to people, because that I'm not talking really about full master. I'm really talking about getting levels correct and that sort of thing, a bit of limiting maybe. But yeah, I would, and for me, of course, on people like me and Dan, who are releasing material with audio in it, we're making videos with audio in it, you know, very quickly sometimes we've just done it, produced that piece of audio, we're going to release it and stream it in 2 hours time, then we kind of have to get used to doing quick, dirty mastering like all the time and not being able to pay someone else to do it. So I think there's a place for it in certain circumstances, in my opinion. But if you're releasing to really impress people with your song to a streaming service or what have you, then I 100% agree with you, Rick. Dan, jump in there.
Yeah. All right. I got something to say on this, and I'll promise I'll keep it moderately short. If we're having that conversation about whether or not we're qualified to master, we probably should ask the same question if we're qualified to mix the song. Mm-hmm. Okay. Then we should ask ourselves if we're qualified to record or perform the instruments that we're recording, or and not to mention being the recording engineer. And are we even qualified to write the song in the first place? Okay. We're doing things ourselves. And the answer really is, what is it for? Because if you're trying to compete with $1 million production, no, you can't do any of that yourself. You can do it. You know, I can build a house in a sandbox. Doesn't mean it's going to be here tomorrow. Right. So it all depends on what you're making music for. If you're learning and crafting music and you're releasing on your own social media channels, then don't spend the money on a master engineer. I firmly believe in the craft of mastering, but I also believe in the craft of recording, mixing, and I also believe in the craft of playing your own damn instruments, and that's a topic for another video. So, but in this day and age, you know, someone decided to declare war on music and music production, where suddenly everyone and his uncle can make music at home. I thought of having some fun and trying some heart surgery at home and see how that goes. It does, you know, you just can't do that, right? But music, it's low-hanging fruit. So the answer to the question is, if you're learning and you're having fun and you want to play with some different plugins and master and learn, have fun. Do it. Of course you can do it. Of course you can.
Like that. Yeah.
If you're trying to create, if you need to create professional productions to compete with professional recordings, somewhere along the line, it's got to be professional, and you can't polish a turd. So if you're mastering professionally, but you mixed it amateur, it ain't going to fix the problem.
Right? Yeah. It's true.
Yeah.
That's simple.
Sure. Very, very good stuff. I think we could talk about that for a very long time indeed. Unfortunately, we don't quite have the time. But that was an interesting start to the show. Again, I want to thank the band, the Geringer Project. Don't be strangers. Would love to hear some more music from you guys in the future. And you know, definitely everyone watching, follow the link that I will put there later to go and have a proper listen to the song. And that was a great start for the first song ever on this series. Now, one of the things when people are sending me all of these songs, which was many, I get lots of different types of links. Talking about finishing a song and mixing and mastering it, by the time you've done all that, do you have any energy left to promote it? I mean, promoting things yourself is a whole new ball game in itself. I've got to say, it's pretty disheartening. I've had a channel before with my music on there. When you spend a lot of time on that and you get like 10 views, 8 of them from your mum and 2 from yourself.
That's right.
Can be pretty disheartening, but it does create quite a nice segue for me into something that our sponsors, DistroKid, do. They do have a couple of promotional tools. I'm just going to quickly show you, if I can click on the right thing. I'm talking about the Geringer project we just listened to, and I hope it's Geringer and not Geringer. God knows if I'm pronouncing things right or not.
Don't say Beringer.
I know. So I just want to pop up this little screen here. I'll just do that from them. This is a page where you can follow follow this song on different formats. You can see Spotify, Apple Music, iTunes, Amazon, Deezer, iHeartRadio. This is a thing that you get from DistroKid called Hyperfollow. You don't have to do anything at all. You've uploaded your album art, you've uploaded your song. They create this page for you. You can share one link with people and it sends them off to all of the many popular places, and they haven't used all of the places that you can go to with DistroKid here, but it's just very cool, very easy to do. I'll just quickly show you here if I can do this. I've got so many things on my screen at the same time. Where's this gone? Oh yeah, okay. So this is here I am in my DistroKid here, and if I was just to click on one of these songs randomly, let's go for Wonderland. My internet's really slow this evening. This is not going to be good. Sorry, DistroKid, about this. I'm stuffing up. Well, we'll just wait for that and have a chat amongst ourselves while the internet decides to actually do something with that. Well, anyway, here we go. We go in here. Whew, saved me just at the last minute. I was about to abandon it. And go down here, and you can see here right at the bottom here, Hyperfollow, and then you just go to that link, and there is, and it's just going to take a moment to update, but there is my Hyperfollow page. I don't know why it's not showing here on the stream. It seems to have lost it, but there you go. I'll just abandon that. You get the idea, folks. Very easy to do. It's live. We are live.
I wouldn't believe it if I hadn't seen it.
I know. I've just realised it opened in a different tab, and I didn't know what the hell was going on. Okay, so if you'd like me to run your next live show for you, folks, then I'm obviously know what I'm doing. Let's move on to the next song. Moving on from there, we have a song here from this time, do you think I should play the song first? I think I'll play the song first this time, and I'll tell you about it afterwards. It's from the artist's name is called The Beatnik, but it's really one guy behind it, Nick Evans, and the song is called Something Beautiful Today, and I've just got to find it. Here we go, and we'll talk about some of the production in this afterwards. Let's have a listen to this one.
As long as I know it's time to go, the old chains I rise to the sky, passing a cloud from my restraint, and I saw something beautiful today. I saw something beautiful today. People are strange, changing the day without knowing. I float on by. I saw something beautiful today. Can't fix it now. I saw something beautiful today. I saw something beautiful today.
So I will say with this one, right up front here, that I do think that was suffering from some streaming stuff, because I've listened to this song a good sort of 10 times already, and it didn't sound quite as someone put in there, but it sounded a little bit 8-bit on there. So again, I'll encourage people to follow the link in the description afterwards to get a proper listen to the song. It's going to sound better than it did then. But overall, what I just want to quickly tell you about this song, and again, thanks to Nick Evans for this, is that he's said just his process here. He starts off with a drum loop. He openly admits he's not very good at programming drums, so he started off with a drum loop. He uses this is going to make sense in a minute. Nomad brick wall limiter. He uses a bit of stereo imaging on the drums. Sonatus EQ. Sonatus EQ, if Ricky and Dan are not familiar, is one of the free EQs which comes with Cakewalk. Mm-hmm. Then he goes on, he records 2 rhythm guitars. I'm assuming left and right. That's what most of us do. And then 1 lead, again using TH3. There's a bit of a theme here. Also records his bass guitar through TH3. Then records leads vocals, double tracks in some places. Uses the good old AT202, the Audio-Technica 2020, I should say, which is a great budget microphone. Then records his harmonies. And what he had to say, or what he said throughout his description when he was telling me about it, was these particular plugins, Sonatus EQ, Sonatus Reverb, Brick Wall, all that, were used again and again and again. Now, rather than delve in, because I'm a bit wary of time here, guys, rather than delve into your whole opinion on this track, give me a little bit of your opinion for sure, but I want to pose this question to you. Do we need more than 6 plugins? Because by count, I think he only uses 6 plugins on the whole song. So I'll start off with you, Dan. What's your opinion? How many plugins do you really need?
Well, 6 could be the upper echelon. We get lost in plugins. As long as you got the basics covered, I mean, we can fall down the rabbit hole with compressors alone, right? Because different compressors have different applications, but there's many compressors that have different modes, and you could use them. And I would argue that 99% of people don't know how to use a compressor anyways. So start with 1.
I like it. And over to you, Rick. I've sort of a loaded question really, because I know what you guys really think, but tell me about it. I mean, have you got lots and lots of plugins on your system?
I've got millions, mate.
Yeah, me too.
I've got millions.
How many do you use out of those millions?
How many do of them? Not enough of them actually, but got a bit of a confession here. You see, because I don't always follow the cardinal rules for setting up buses and stuff. So because I've got quite a powerful computer. It's
you
like,
just chuck them on.
I just need a plug-in. Just drop it on.
Just whack it in there.
Sod all that. So I end up using way too many. But if I was to analyse, the ones that I go back to, there are probably 5 or 6, and that's covering, all the instrumentation and the vocals. There's probably 5 or 6, but I always go back to.
I feel about the same. I mean, Dan, you're in a similar position to me in that you're running a YouTube channel, so people do send us lots of plugins to try out. And my thing about it is I'm the same, Ricky. I've got lots and lots of them, and I wouldn't say I only use. It's nice to have them there, but there's only really a handful that I always use on every single song. And my main thing about it is I don't have time to learn them all. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things you've got to remember if you start buying all this stuff. Yeah. Getting a big library. Are you ever going to get to know it?
Well, if I can offer just 2 seconds of advice, because I went through this curve where I used to think that I needed a plugin to solve a problem. and that company whose name we won't mention, offering those $29 deals that all got us all sucked in, and now they want license fees, but we won't talk about it. But anyways, it was like, oh, I have this problem, and that thing is going to fix my problem. And it took me a couple of shekels to realize that wasn't the way to do it. Whereas now, I actually did a video on my channel about plugins that I actually use, and I think it was 10, only because I sort of divided it up into plugins that only exist on a master bus, plugins that only exist on a submaster, and plugins that are general use where they can play everywhere. So if you added them all up, I think it was something like 10 that I could live with and not need anything else. And plugins don't solve problems. Plugins are creative tools, right? You need the basics. You need EQ, you need compression, a little bit of reverb. Everything else is cream cheese, right? And you can get lost in plugins, because if you're trying to solve the problem with a plugin, you're beyond solving some earlier issues already anyways, and then you get into that death spiral where the song takes 3 years to finish or never gets done. Right?
True. One of the ways that what helped for me was during the last year or two, I had a couple of major computer problems where I had to basically reset everything, and a lot of the plugins, when I download them, even though I can download them from the vendor again, I like to make a backup and I'll put them on my server or whatever, just so that they're locally available. And it was getting big. It was getting lots and lots and lots. And to be honest with you, when I had to reset my whole system, this was last year or so, I went, you know what, I'm just going to add them as I use them, because otherwise I'll sit here for days installing all of them. And I was really surprised. I reckon I only ended up actually ever installing about 15 or 20% of all of them, you know. They just didn't come up, you know, and especially certain types of plugins. Let's say there's lots of clones of LA2A compressors, for example. Yeah, you need one. You don't need all of the 6 available. So find one you like.
No.
I actually counted at one point. I had 40 compressor plugins on my system.
You're a lightweight. You're a lightweight, mate. You haven't seen what's on my computer. It's funny. Just to follow up what you were saying, Dan. You know, before the show started, you know, I think I mentioned that, I've been booted out my second music space, and I had to set up somewhere else. So I had a new laptop, and exactly that, you know, that situation came up, whereas I had access to everything that I'd bought. But what do I actually put on the laptop? Because, you know, it's only got a limited amount of, you know, disk space and memory on there. And what do I really use? What were the plugins that were essential to me completing whatever it was that I was doing? And it was quite amazing that actually when I had, there was a limit to how much I could do with a laptop. It just hadn't got enough juice on it. But I managed to get most of everything done. And it was with actually very little compared to what I've got on the main system. Very little.
Think about,
I would
say, plugins emulate physical hardware. This is a long discussion, but at its core, obviously, there's some plugin designers that are making some really cool modern plugins, right? Well, perhaps it's at the top. But, you know, if you're in a studio, a physical studio, you have your outboard gear, you have everything set up. You're not reaching for things, oh, let me get another one. You're working with what you have, right? And the pitfalls of digital are that it's limitless, right? So you can fall into those traps. And it's for people who are learning, especially. You know, people who know what they're doing, they only buy what they need. You know, people who are learning are buying because they think it's going to help them learn, and then that's just going to make it more complicated. So I think we all agree less is more. And
however, if you do see any videos from me where I'm reviewing software plugins, do watch them and consider buying them.
Well, you need 6, right? You know, you can swap them out.
You can swap out the 6. You can swap out the 6. Yeah, only 6. But We keep swapping them around. So there's going. Look, I will say just in terms of a sort of an interesting thing on the song that we just listened to, and I know that the quality wasn't sounding good there in terms of the streaming and all that kind of stuff. But when you have the experience as I did, and I've done this many times because I've been judges in song competitions before. I've been a judge in song competitions. When you listen to lots and lots and lots of songs, of course the production matters. But honestly, the song is the thing that stands out when you're on the 50th, 60th song. It's either going to jump out with a bit of a hook or a good performance or something like that. That's the thing that draws you in. Bad production could potentially make it harder to appreciate, but I really think that the song is where it's at. That's my advice to anyone when you're starting out, is focus much more on your music and just getting reasonable recordings than trying to think your production, as Dan was alluding to there, that everything in your production is going to cure and make it sound amazing. If you haven't got a decent song happening, I'm afraid I've got bad news for you. You said something about turds, polishing turds or something before the show, didn't you, Dan?
Yeah.
I'm not sure we can say that on air, but
that's my side job, by the way.
Okay,
eat,
so
right?
moving on to the next one. This is an interesting one, and some people who haven't had their song played might feel a bit aggrieved by this one, because this is not even really a proper song in some ways. Now I've upset the composer, haven't I? In fact, I'm going to upset him even more by trying to pronounce his name. He's from Poland. I've had to write it out phonetically so that I can say it, and I'm still going to make a pig's ear of it. So his first name is Wojciech, and the second name is Stechishin. Oh, that was terrible. But let's just call him Wojciech, okay? This just grabbed my attention because it was different. And I don't think the title of the song, I have to say, is a bit of a giveaway, because it's called Cakewalk MIDI Fest. So I think we know. That
starting to sense a theme here, Mike. If you don't write it, you're screwed.
There's many people who have put in songs that were recorded in Cakewalk. I wonder why.
I think your peeps are submitting songs. So.
That's right.
Eddie from Reaper. That's usually the other one, yeah.
So here's the thing that Wojciech was telling me about this. So he recorded it in Cakewalk. It was his first time to record anything with MIDI. And Ricky, this might interest you, because being the keyboard player as you are, and with all those keyboards obviously banked around you, you probably know a thing or two about recording MIDI. So this is the first time he's ever done that. He has no audio interface. He has so he's just recording with his laptop, nothing else. And he said even if he did have an audio interface, his guitar and bass are so bad they would sound awful, he's convinced. But he was just curious to see what could be done with MIDI. So he was driven. So this is the first ever thing that he ever did with MIDI at all on his computer, no audio interface, and it's called Cakewalk MIDI Fest.
Okay.
I told you it was short and sweet. It's just
I
a
like
little
that.
demo.
Yeah, a funky little number, that one, yeah.
I don't think Dan's quite as convinced here. But
Well,
anyway,
okay. If I could just say, because I got to get it out eventually, otherwise my chest is going to bust. But no, if he's playing the parts, like if he's actually composing and playing those parts, there's real musicianship there. And I know, and I want to make it clear, he said he's experimenting, so that's understood. So I would love to hear him do this for real. Like, to me, that's a demo. That's like, hey, that's like you send to your band and say, hey, I got some ideas. Because if he's playing those lines, throw a real bass player in there, get some jamming going. There's a real nice riff in there. I could get into that. So, but he did submit it. So then if I listen to it or judge it based on that, it's a demo and it's an experiment. I would, and I think there's some potential there, but I want to hear some real instruments because I too, if someone's submitting a song, and I'll give him an asterisk because he said it was an experiment. I have a hard time grooving to a computer. You know, because there's no soul to me, right? It's got to be, you know, I teach my kids, you know, I have a saying, I say, you know, carry the torch of rock and roll. And that means just learn how to do it yourself. One button music, you know, someone can push a drum machine and go, wow. If he's playing those parts, there's definitely a musicianship 100% there. Yep. But I need to hear a live instrument playing that music, at least on some level. Otherwise, I just can't get into the groove. That's just me. Because music is human to me, and I hate hiding behind computers. That's
got you.
Yeah. Okay. Can I respond to that? Can I respond to that? Daniel, listen, mate. I'll tell you what. I suspect that you know, I respect your view on how you see these things, but if Mike hadn't said that the you know, the creator told him that he used MIDI to do this, I think your opinion would have been different, mate. I think it was, because to me, you know, you know, this genre, if you like, and listening to what he was doing on the basic idea, it did actually sound very musical, I thought. It sounded quite, you know, I mean, I can't be 100% sure, but it sounded to me like it was somebody who's playing because of the syncopation that you were hearing in that recording. So he's either a very clever programmer or he's actually a pretty good musician, because even though it was quite basic, I still felt that, it had soul, which you said it didn't. Yeah, I think it did.
Well, I did say first, if he's playing those parts, he's a musician. But let me say, and speaking from a guitar player, okay, now guitar players love their gear. Okay, so people say, well, you know, if you don't plug into a big Marshall amplifier, you don't sound that good, right? But there's some famous guitar players who had the chance to visit the stages of their heroes. You know, like Nuno Bettencourt going to a Van Halen concert and plugging into Eddie Van Halen's rig. He did a video about that. There's no more accomplished guitar player than a Nuno Bettencourt. And he said when he plugged into Eddie Van Halen's rig, he thought he was going to sound like Eddie Van Halen. And he was shocked. He said, I sounded like myself. And that groove, that tone, that sound, it comes from these. And while the musicianship and the knowledge and even the swing, the groove, you can record MIDI without a meter. You could just do it freestyle, right? So there you can say, okay, the groove is there. But to me, groove, it's a combination of what you're playing and the feeling and the tone that comes from here. And the organic matter is missing. To me, you know, that's it. That's a relationship between the natural tone and vibe and, you know, how it's being recorded. There's to me, there's a bridge that it fits together for a complete song. That's just.
Can I just say something? Yeah?
You're that way.
I've got to say personally, I'm kind of with the essence of what Dan says. I think music without any heart and soul is not even music. It's just kind of pitched sound. However, I actually think that that music sounded sort of like lounge music that I used to listen to a long time. That very groovy kind of lounge music. A lot of Europeans, you know, would make that kind of music. If that had come on, you know, it had been going along, and no one had primed me at all, I don't think I would have picked that was virtual instruments and MIDI. If I'm honest with you, that may be because I'm not as clever as Dan at picking things up like this. but I again, it comes back to the music primarily, the composition for me primarily. So I agree with Dan that it was a demo, and I think Wojciech understands that, and he did it as an experiment, as he says. What's this MIDI all about? What can I do with it? What I love about it more than anything is he's a person. with a laptop with no audio interface, with no ability to record the instruments that he has got. And he's gone, I'm going to give this a crack. I'm going to give this a go. I'm going to see if I can make some music. I suspect if he had the ability to record his instruments, he would have done, Dan. And if he had, he's also saying his instruments not great, but I mean, you know, that's a whole other topic. But I reckon he's achieved something quite pretty good with a free piece of software with a computer and nothing else. I think that's to be applauded for sure.
Yeah, could I just make one more point, Pete, about this?
Pete's not here. Pete's not here.
Sorry, Mike.
I thought you meant Pete philosophically speaking.
You two used to be like that. What happened?
No, he's
Anyway.
going to be on. He's going to be on one of our shows. So
Anyway, my apologies, sir. Just one final point on that. I mean, look, I'm of the view. You know, I find that these days I'm much more flexible about you know, what I actually use to approach a recording kind of thing. You know, because yes, there's a whole universe of plugins out there, but for me, if you have the musical background, you'll know how to give those instruments the right articulations and stuff, so it sounds authentic. Because I challenge you that there's stuff that I've done, you can't tell the difference, but that's only because I am a musician, but I happen to be using machines to do what I'm doing. So I think there's a case for, it's always worth investing in learning how to play an instrument, of course. I totally agree with that, because without that, then some of the soul is missing. But if you have both, then it becomes a question of convenience more than anything else. You know, so whilst in the past I may have been more like Dan, these days I think, listen, man, if it sounds good,
It is.
does it matter?
But I think Dan's saying that to him it doesn't sound. I don't think he's talking about this track specifically, but he's saying in general when music is generated entirely with it doesn't sound good to him. So there's a preference of taste there, which is one of the wonderful things about music, is that we all have different tastes and different needs in it. And I think, and also I'm also aware with Dan as well, supporting you a little bit here, Dan, against the mean Ricky in the middle. Is that your primary music is rock music, or you're very, like, that's what really gets you going, and that may well be a genre of music where you better be playing your own bloody instruments, you know, kind of the thing. It's
a big thing, and I know we don't have time to get into it, but it's you know, rock music especially, because when you're talking about you know EDM or digital based music, where let's face it, a lot of it does sound the same, but that music is not designed to live forever. Right. Rock musicians and artists have a problem because they're still competing with legacy artists. Right. You know, I tell my kids, like, we hear a song on the radio, an old Rush song or AC/DC, and I said, you know why they're still playing this song? Because it's good. And new artists have to compete with that, not only from the songwriting and the tones. So, like, the last song, we didn't talk much about the song. Before I saw the comments, right away I thought the Beatles. As soon as you put a new artist next to the Beatles, you're done. You can't compete.
Yeah, that's it.
Right? And it's not fair to a new artist. You know, that's a challenge that modern artists don't have to face when they're just like playing tracks for a nightclub and they have a hit song that lasts on the radio or streams for a month or two. They make their cash, they move on to the next one. That song never to be heard again. Right? Yeah. So rock artists face that problem. So if you're going to be a rock artist, you got to be good. You got to offer something unique and different, right? And it's if you're just sounding the same, you're using the same plugins, the same modelers and amp plugins and stuff like that. Your song better be damn good. Number one, we already touched on that, but you got to have a flavor to it, and that's where I worry. That's really why I worry, because it just all becomes vanilla then, right? Everything's just one and the same.
Yeah, we live in very interesting times, and it's there's a very interesting correlation between music and the world of sort of visual creativity. Like myself and Dan working with video and also with photographers, we get a lot done for us. There's a lot of helping hands, and yet some of the great work is from the past where they didn't have any helping hands there, and I do wonder sometimes. But talking about helping hands, right? If you happen to use DistroKid to release your music,
segue, Mike.
one of the things that you find is it's helpful to have a little bit of video with it. Some places it's much easier to post a video than it is to post audio. For example, on Facebook, it's quite difficult to post just audio on Facebook. And one of the things that they do at DistroKid, I'll just try and go over to my account again and make this happen. If you do join DistroKid, go up to the goodies here. You go down to promote yourself, just on there, and you can see we saw Hyperfollow before. The other one is called mini videos. You go in there, right, and you get to select any of these little backgrounds, all nicely phone shaped and stuff, right? And you just pick one of your backgrounds. I'll just pick. Let's go for this one. This is one I'll use this one over here. This is one that Dan would use, I think, with all the flames and stuff on there. Both for when he's making rock music and when he's flaming guests on my channel.
Reminds me more of my heartburn, but anyways.
And you would go down and you'd see something like that, and you'll go ahead and I'll pick one of my songs there. Again, I'll go Shining Moon. Nobody ever listens to my song Shining Moon. Maybe they would if I used this. And then you generate this little mini video. You click on generate mini video down there. I won't bore you with it right now. And it just spits out either a link that you can share with people or the actual MP4 file for the video, which you can go ahead and upload. Just 30 seconds with your audio and that. And it's just a great way to quickly get a little snippet of your music out to people. So as I say, DistroKid, lots of tools there in Promote Yourself. I've just touched on a couple of them today, and they are the sponsors for today's show. And don't forget, if you follow the link, I'm not there. I'm not in the right spot to do the link, am I? I'll get rid of these blokes. There I am. There we go. There's the link up above me there. If you do follow that, then you do get a 7% discount of the already cheap $19.99 per year. Now, Dan,
yes,
if you weren't so keen, I'm not going to give you a hard time. I'm not saying you weren't keen on the last track. You had some interesting things to say about it. And I'm glad you said them, because I don't want it to be one of those shows where we just say nice things about everyone all the time. That's not honest. But if you weren't so keen on that one, you may hate this one.
Yeah, come on.
So
he's leaving.
I don't have quite as much information on this one. Again, first of all, let's start off with this poor fella's name. I think it's an Indian name. It's Pratax Sharma. I think that's how. I said that wrong, I'm sure. Let me just chuck it up on the screen so you guys can figure out. I'll let you guys try and say it. There you go. What does it say, Dan?
Pratyakash
Sharma.
Pratyakash.
P.S.
Surely one of us got it right amongst that. Now, he hasn't given me quite so much information, but there is a little bit of a reason why I've picked this track to help us in our discussion a little bit. So he says he's a bedroom producer with no expensive gear at all. And he's got no room treatment, was one of the things that he mentioned to me. And in case people don't know, one of the reasons I got Rick and Dan on here is if the opportunity came up to talk about room treatment, I wanted to have these two guys on here because they know much more than me about it. And I just stuck some things up around my room, bought them from a fella and chucked them up there. And it was great. But we'll talk about that in a moment. But that was one of the things. He says he's still learning, still getting going. This is some electronic music, Dan.
Hit me with it.
Dan's just going, I just dissed EDM. I just said But, let's go have a listen. Let's have a listen anyway. Let's chuck it up there.
Turn the beat, yo.
Okay, so it was probably a little unfair to play this music to three guys over the age of whatever we're over the age of. Let's not mention that.
Over 25. You can say it.
Yeah.
So can I? I'm going to speak first because you guys said a lot about the last one. No, this is not the sort of music I normally listen to, but lots of people do. I think there's a place for everything. So if you were in the right environment where you just wanted to dance and take drugs, this may be just the thing for you. That's probably a bit over the top, but do you know what I mean? Like there's a place for every kind of music. I know that and a good friend of the channel, Jimmy, said this. A whole song based on a single repeating riff doesn't cut it for me. I get where you're coming from, Jimmy, but also if you ever try it once, it's not always quite as easy as you think it's going to be. That's all I'll say. I've had a go at this. There's a certain sense of knowing when have I repeated something enough. I've got to do a little new layer now or something different, and having a sense of timing for that is actually sort of quite difficult. That's my opinion on it. And again, this is a bedroom producer. Someone started off. I think it sounded sonically pretty reasonable to me as well. I'm going to get you guys' opinions, but the main question I want to talk about is, do we need room treatment? Because this is an interesting one, especially for something like this where there's no acoustic instruments being recorded. But let's first of all just go to Dan, first of all, about your general sort of thoughts and opinions.
Just on the need for acoustic treatment.
Well, on the song first of all, but also the need for acoustic treatment. I think we know where you're going to fall with the song, but
you might be surprised. You might be surprised. Now, I do recognize that EDM, hip hop, it's the biggest music in the world. Okay, so it's you for me to hate on it is counterproductive for everybody. Okay, it's not my cup of tea. But who am I? I'm just some middle-aged guy playing rock music, listening to bands that were good 40 years ago, right? Like, I know it. I know it. But that being said, music like this, to me, it's kind of wallpaper, just because, it doesn't sound unique. I mean, there's definitely something interesting going on. I could see it as a soundtrack, perhaps, in a film, and, where it's part of the experience. And music like that is, nightclubs, people are dancing. They're not sitting there watching someone perform.
Exactly.
And I get that. They want to dance. They don't want to listen to music. Right. So it's got that beat. If it's got that pumping bottom end and it gets their asses shaken, then it's done its job. And I get that. Just because I don't like that and I don't dance doesn't mean that I think it's bad. It's just not for me. But I understand why that music is there. And it serves a thirst that people have. And in that case, it's successful. And, if this is mixed right and then it's doing its job, then, who am I to criticize it, in all honesty? Did I answer your question?
We'll come back to you in a moment, Dan, because we want to get back to the room treatment thing. You did answer that nicely. Just your quick first reactions there, Ricky.
Yeah, I think this lad's done really well with what he says that he's got. And just following on from what Dan said, I don't think that EDM producers really get the kind of appreciation that they deserve, because it's clearly a separate area from all the other genres, including hip hop. I wouldn't put them together at all. And there is a skill set in doing EDM, and I've done many different genres. I mean, that's not an area that I could honestly say hand on heart that, that yeah, I can do that, because it's a new thing altogether. As far as this chap's mix is concerned, I mean, look, I didn't hear anything wrong with it. I thought it was interesting that he presented it with a video, and I think in that context it actually worked really well. And there's potential for his development to do more of that for that kind of thing. But if he's really going to be committed to the EDM thing, I would have said that he probably needs to revisit it and give it maybe more of an arrangement, because I listening to it, I could only hear maybe 2 or 3 changes throughout the whole riff. And the EDM guys, they're masters of changing it up.
Right.
On the move, they keeps changing, And if he develops that, I think he's got a bright future doing this kind of thing. Personally, I really liked the track. I thought it worked with the video.
Okay.
Top marks. Good boy.
Really, really constructive remarks. Now we come to the question, because I mean, there's so much to talk about with room treatment. And I've been a little bit guilty, and I'm not sure. No, let's not go into that. I'm gonna put you guys off. First of all, well, both of you, but Rick, first of all, say for this type of music, he's probably just done this on his laptop. Does he need room treatment?
Well, from the results that he got from this one, I guess there's an argument to say no. But going forward, I think he'll have to build that into the equation of what he does in the future, because you've got to be able to judge your mixes before people hear them, and so that's why it's important that if you have the resources to do it, you definitely take a look at your mix environment. Because a recording environment is not so important for the kind of thing he's doing, because there were no vocals as such, which is, that's a different set of issues you've got to master there. But in your studio space, and I'm going to mix, you need to know what the mix is doing rather than what the room is doing to your mix. And for me, that's always the argument. Am I hearing what I've actually put down? So room treatment comes into its own. If that's what you're trying to achieve, I want to make sure my mixes are good. Okay, I need to take out as much other interference as possible.
Yep. Dan?
I'm going to sort of agree with what Ricky says, and I can sort of enhance a little bit, because room treatment is only part of the equation, right? I believe in it. I mean, I've produced 6, 7, 8 videos on the topic, and I've engaged in a lot of conversations with a lot of people who have challenged me on things that I've published, and I've learned. Like, I'm here to learn and share, and that's why I do what I do. So I picked up a lot of tips just from listening to what people have to say. But one thing that is a fact is that most of us who are building home studios are starting in rooms that are not optimal to begin with. They're either the wrong shape, or they're slightly off center, or they're the materials in the room are too reflective, or whatever. So, and then we're trying to treat a room that's not ideal in the first place. You always got to start from scratch and say, okay, I'm building a studio. Even now, I'm moving into a new house, and I had to remove a kitchen to build a studio, and I have tiles on the wall. I'm going to wait and see what havoc that's going to play in my room. I didn't pull them down, but we'll see. So back to the acoustic treatment. Acoustic treatment helps a lot. But what I found is, and I actually did a video about this, is I introduced the concept of frequency analyzers, because even though it might sound better to our ear, if the frequency is not there, it's not there. Or we're hearing too much of it, because, like I got these headphones, the Bear Dynamic, the 990s. I got these, they're open backs. I thought, okay, at night I can mix with these, but I find them a little too bassy, and my mixes weren't translating very. these things, right? So I went back to my $150 Sennheisers, and I get better results there. So the short answer to that question is, if you can treat your room, start by setting up your room properly first. Start to augment the room with treatment. And then if you're not certain that you're hearing all the frequencies properly, I think you could supplement with a good frequency analyzer. Just, and I don't believe in mixing with your eyes, but most rooms are just not optimal. So it doesn't hurt to see what the frequency curve looks like when you're mixing. Because if you're, especially this kind of music, now I know the streaming effect, I'm probably losing some detail, but usually that's more on the top end. I'm not hearing a lot of bass.
That was what I was going to touch on. In my personal opinion with this is, it's easy to think it's electronic. So I obviously in the tracking stage, then room treatment doesn't really come into it at all.
No, not that point.
But for this style of music, the low end, the bass, which is obviously often sub bass as well, is really, really important. And you can do an amount of that on headphones, and that's what you think he would do. But I also, and I'm not an expert on this, but it concerns me then that this music should be played in a club. It's not going to be, that's where it's going to exist, in all kinds of conditions. So you can't fix a low end that you can't hear properly. If you can't hear it, and you're not with your right equipment and the room's messing it up, then so. All I'd say is I understand people in the audience that no one sits down and goes, right, I want to start recording at home. First of all, I'll buy some room treatment, and then I'll buy some monitors and a couple of $1,000 worth of microphones, and then I'll learn my DAW, and then I'll start recording. No, it's kind of it's just not the real world. That's not the way things happen. We all like the shiny bits of tech first of all, or the cool guitar bits and pieces and all that. And most people are going to hazard a guess buy their first studio monitors before they get the room treatment. And that's where I think it starts to get a little bit. If the only advice I could say to people, and it's, look, not everyone's got the money to do everything that we're talking about. Let's be real about this. Some people really just don't have the money to do everything. So I would definitely suggest, like, if you can, though, get that room treatment pretty soon after you get those monitors, because no room treatment really negates anything you buy in monitors. It just and remember, you can use, I like some of the solutions as interim solutions, especially I think bookshelves with lots of books on them are fantastic, sort of diffusers and things like that. But quickly, I think I know what you're going to say, both of you, but I'm going to give you a quick short question each. Ricky, what's the biggest mistake that most people make with room treatment?
The biggest mistake? Probably, I'll say this because I made that mistake, I didn't bother measuring nothing when I put this up. Nothing at all, I saw Dan's video, Dan's video, and I like how that looks. He says it works. Right, I'm going to give it a go. That was probably.
And you didn't use any mirrors? You didn't use any mirrors at all?
I kind of used a mirror technique for nearest reflection points. Yeah, sure. But listen, I just want to say to everybody watching that, look, I've been kindly invited onto this show. I'm by no means an acoustics expert. I needed to be inspired by other people and, absorbing their ideas, in the belief that
absorbing
they did their homework
ideas.
first. Unlike me. And, I don't mind, saying that in this case, I followed Dan's template for putting mine together. And all I can tell you is it bloody works. When I did the measurement afterwards, every room, as you say, has got its problems. But what I found was I by following that template, I actually created something where I could create dependable mixes. They sounded pretty much proportional wherever I played them. It worked for me. So a little plug there, mate. Yeah, it did work.
So Dan,
It
so it turns out, Dan, you're the inspiration.
Yeah,
You're
seriously.
the inspiration.
So what I've done
There's a copyright strike.
beyond that, what I've done beyond that, I mean, I've added to it because there were a couple of areas where, especially at the back of the room, I needed to think about some QRD diffusion. So it's like, right, okay, let me put that in there. Does that actually help? And I guess what I'm doing is following the general principles of how you get a room to sound balanced and, honest with you about your mixes, So thank you, Dan.
My pleasure, my friend.
Dan, Dan, as Ricky takes up all your time every time, we need to make this short and sweet. But
mine's a yes or no answer. Okay, I got it.
So the quick one was, what do you think the biggest mistake that people make with their room treatment?
That's an easy, because I field a lot of questions on this because of that video that's so popular. Is the biggest mistake people make is overthinking the process. They're not expensive to make. And I realize in different markets, the availability of like mineral wool insulation, and we get in all the debates of the materials. But the biggest mistake I see people make, because they ask me the silliest questions sometimes. And I just said, man, at $20-$30, go make yourself a couple of panels and test it out. Just do it. Your room probably sucks anyways. So why not start to correct the problems? If you make the panels, a standard rock wool or mineral wool based panel 2x4 is a general use panel that could be used in a million different applications. You want to get into bass traps and diffusion, and later on, every room is going to need at least 4 to 6 of those standard panels. Even if you move them later, you're going to need them. And people are overthinking the fabric. Oh, is it acoustically neutral? It's dumb questions. If you can breathe, if you can smell your breath through it, it's going to work. Get some insulation there. Don't use fiberglass insulation. Stop overthinking it. Do a little bit of research, sure, and just start to make them. Ricky's the poster child for that, because you can tweak later, right? If you make the standard panel, you can use it for a million different ways, 4 to 6 of them, you'll always need them. Stop overthinking it and just start making them and put them up and see how it sounds. Yeah.
Now, we'll say thanks for that. And just another plug in case anyone's missed it at all. Folks, if you are thinking about it, DIY is a good way to go if you're just a little bit handy. You're not talking about extreme carpentry or anything here. You can do rough cuts, you cover it in fabric afterwards, no one sees any of that stuff. But if you're thinking about it, Dan's channel is the place to go on YouTube to get a really good, straightforward, he's got more than one video on this, but his primary one on it is straightforward, easy to follow. He gives you all kinds of measurements and methodologies and things in there. And the reason you should do that is that if I might borrow a phrase from another YouTube channel that we all know, there's a lot of snake oil in our sort of genre, right? There's a lot of snake oil in a lot of the things we talk about. This isn't one of them. If you're concerned, like, they're cheap, but by the time I make, say, 8 panels, it all starts to add up to maybe some hundreds of dollars. You will notice the difference. You'll think before you have room treatment, you'll think it's a luxury. And then once you have it, you'll go, how can I ever mix another song without some room treatment? It seems sort of sacrilege. So that's my opinion on it. And as someone saying in the comments there, just down here, carpet is a great start. Look, there's lots of things you can do. There's lots of things you can do with furnishings and things. If you just don't have the money at all to even do a DIY jobby, then shift some furniture around in your house, use it creatively. Don't get too hooked up on looks is another thing. So, if you'll make the mistake that I've made in the past of getting a whole bunch of little foam tiles, because that's what studios should have apparently. And they do something, but they fall short in many, many, many ways. So that's my last bit. We're going to move on to the last song of the show. This is something quite different. This is something very, very different from anything. It's from, I'm just going to pull up my notes here. It's from a regular on this channel, and his name is Happy Ron. I think he was actually here earlier, I seem to remember. And this song came as a response from working in a men's group where people had a little bit of an issue and were learning to find the softer side of themselves. So there's a little bit of a story behind the lyric of this song, which I think is worthwhile. The track was created in Cakewalk Sonar, so not even a new version of Cakewalk. So it was done in Sonar, which was when Gibson, bless their heart, used to own it. And the drums were made with Superior Drummer. The keys were made easy keys for harp and for the harp and the keyboard in there. He used a program which I hear mentioned a lot. I never use it. I've never used it. It's called Band in a Box, but it does come up once in a while. I've heard people talk about it. And he's mentioned that he used a number of Ozone products for mixing. And lastly, before I play the video, he said that editing the video to the song brought tears to Happy Ron's eyes, combining two of his loves, music and Star Wars.
Hey.
And if you've got a little bit of an ear for lyrics, this is what I love this. I've listened to this a lot during the week. I'm a bit of a lyrics guy. And it just brought a little tear to my old cynical eye here and there. Let's have a listen anyway. Here we go. This is called Even the Hardest Part.
Everyone heads out to find their path in a life so full of storms. But we're not so tough that we've outgrown the road that leads us back home. Even the hardest heart will sometimes skip a beat when the world turns right side up and everything seems at peace, and the smallest crack can start to let in a little spark. Even in the hardest heart, we try to stay the same until we see all our children need us to do, and the truth shines bright in their eyes. We must grow so they can too. Even the hardest heart will sometimes skip a beat when the world turns right side up and everything seems at peace, and the smallest crack can start to let in a little spark. Even in the hardest heart. Some build a wall they can't get around, that they want us to help them break through. For no one hides without needing to be found by the warmth that they once knew. Even the hardest heart will sometimes skip a beat when the world turns right side up and everything seems at peace, and the smallest crack can start to let in a little spark. Even in the hardest heart.
So there we go. I can see a tear in Dan's eye. I'll throw it out to you first, Dan. I'll throw it out to you first because Ricky always takes up all your time. So,
well, I want to respond to something someone said in the comments. This sort of ties into everything I've ever said about creating music. They had to ask, "Is this a real guitar?" Right? And it's like, to me, it's like that's where we've come. You know, I certainly hope it's real. It sounded real to me. I think this was a very heartfelt song. Came from the soul. Someone wrote a song, laid it down, and gave it to us to listen to. And I like the honesty of that. And yes, I heard someone said stipey. I could hear a little REM there. I could hear a little, but it felt very honest and sincere. Just some dude with a guitar wrote a song, and I think that's a timeless relationship. You know, an acoustic guitar and a voice. If you can write a song like that, it'll sound good with any instrumentation. I think it starts right there, and I think that was well done. Well done.
Yeah, cool. Rick, let's hear from you, man. Don't
no,
you
go on,
do
Dan.
that.
Take up some more of my time. It's all right, man. It's okay. You know, some equilibrium here. Yeah. To answer your question, Mike. Yeah, that was a great example of just delivering something in the most simple way, and you can't get more simple than, you know, a guy with a guitar and singing. And what sold this, obviously, you know, this piece of music could have been chosen for The Mandalorian, which I'm a big fan of. Right. But the honesty, and what really sold it was the performance. That's where it's all at. I mean, yes, the lyrics were thoughtful and, you know, heartfelt, but it doesn't connect without the performance. And the way that we judge performance these days, where we want to hear people doing all kinds of things with their voice, whereas when I listened to that, it was all about the emotional connection with the lyrics, and it was his song, and he made it sound like his song. And, you know, so this is not something I'd normally listen to, but in the context of how it was presented, it's fantastic. Brilliant.
It's interesting you should say that, because, and Ron might be disappointed with this, because I was going to do a bit of an experiment with this song. I've been thinking this, and I'm thinking out loud still about it. May as well do it to lots of people, because I really like Ron's vocal performance there, and I did think, can this song work with another performance? And both of you guys would have seen Susie sing on the channel, and I thought, I wonder if I could do a cover of this with Susie singing. What difference would that make to the song? I mean, I've got a feeling it may not. She's got a beautiful voice, but it may not work as well. But I was going to ask you, Ron, but I'm not sure about that at all. But yeah, I love the delivery of it. There's even, just if get a little bit technical, not technical, but detailed about it. Just before he delivers the word heart, even the hardest heart, you know, that pregnant pause, as you would call it sometimes, just it's just not quite even on the beat there. It's just a little bit after the beat, maybe. That's just lands it, you know, like the drop in some EDM. Dan wouldn't know anything about that. But yeah, I mean, obviously, I've got to say, I did listen to lots and lots of songs, obviously, and it kind of jumped out to me kind of immediately. And I don't think I'm going to be disrespectful to Happy Ron when I say that he hasn't got a what we think of a classically beautiful voice. You know what I mean? Those voices that make it on shows like The Voice or X Factor, or you know, where everyone sounds, you know, like an R&B singer or something. But he's got one of those voices which is interesting and full of character, and that's, I really enjoy those types of voices personally. I could do with not hearing someone do some vocal gymnastics quite often and just listen to,
Totally
as
agree.
Rick said.
Yeah. Like I said, honesty. That was the first thing. It was just
Exactly.
real. It's just real.
I think
it's not,
think
he's
it's
not trying to be
interesting-
something he's not. That's what I think.
I think it's interesting to throw a spanner in the works that everyone keeps talking about the guitar in it, because I don't think there is a guitar in it. I think it's a mandolin. But anyway.
Well, that's just because we were just focused on his voice, you know.
Exactly. I mean,
It faded into the background.
I'm sure he wrote it. I've seen some of his other works. I looked at some of his other songs, and he plays guitar. Yeah, so he more than likely wrote that on guitar. But I think in terms of, he hasn't mentioned guitar in the production notes. Anyway, my question, we've kind of touched upon it, but you may want to expand it. Was, and I think myself and Dan and other YouTubers are quite guilty of this, is we tend to focus on the technical aspects of music production, music production, because that's much easier to talk about and much easier to quantify and discuss than the emotional content of music. But without the emotional content of music, of course, I know we'll, it just doesn't, it's not worth our time. But yeah, is that the sort of question? In our pursuit of technical interests, for people watching our channels and going to places like the Facebook groups that Ricky runs, do we get distracted and forget about the heart and soul of music? Do you see that happening?
Definitely.
I think there's a rush to completion. People are just or a graveyard littered with ideas. I think it's too easy to create right now, and I think sometimes you can just jump in and push a few buttons and make some noises and call it a song. Where 10, 20 or 20, 30 years ago, if you were writing a song, you were writing a song, right?
Yep.
I call it the graveyard of ideas, right? That's good as a good starting point, but I think pushing a song to completion as a song, independent of the process. Like I said, this last song, a voice and an acoustic guitar. Some of the best songs in history were written that way, and then ended up with an orchestra at the end. But it started with the basic heart and soul of writing songs. Yeah.
And there's a basic composition going in there, and we talked about it earlier when we were talking, even with the EDM sort of stuff or electronic stuff, that pace of knowing when to bring in a change, knowing when to bring in something different, knowing you do need to repeat things. How many times? You've got to have a sense for that, a feel for that. It's very hard when you're the composer to judge that purely from a listener's point of view, right? When Dan, sorry to keep focusing on Dan here, but Dan, when you play a good riff, you were jamming with your band years ago and you're playing a good riff on your guitar, you go around in circles on that for hours, because it just feels good to do it, right?
You just get in that pocket and you just go and go and go,
But the poor listener's going, when is this going to end?
But that's how we wrote songs, though, right? We would find a riff and we would jam on it for, we'd record it, and then later on we go back and listen to it, and we'd find that 20, 30-second bit that worked, and then we'd build a song around that. That's where it comes from, but it came from the heart, right? We were just feeding off of each other. And a lot of our songs back in those days, that's how we wrote. We just jammed for hours and we just run tape. But
Ricky, is it more of a challenge for you in the sense of when you're actually, because I assume that being a man of the keys, that you probably have some background of playing an acoustic piano, but at your fingertips most of the time are things which are purely, mostly digital. There'd probably be some analog stuff in there, but purely electronically produced sound. So there's always a technical aspect to what you do. Is it harder then to remember, I need to get to the heart and soul of moving someone?
Okay, I mean, it's something I hope people would say about my music if they've heard the range of it. But I have a background as a player, so when it comes to, though I may use computers to do much of what I do now, I intrinsically understand what I need to do to make it sound authentic. But with the technology that we've got now, I mean, there is this current pushing you towards everything resolving to noughts and ones, and you have to be mindful of that, because to me, personally, something sounds wrong actually if it's too on it, because if you've played in a band, I'm sure you both have. When you're on a gig, you're supposed to be at a certain tempo, but when everybody's like, we're excited, it starts picking up, it starts getting faster, but it's a chemistry that you're is what you're really experiencing, and I think with computers sometimes you lose that if you rely too literally on everything that it can do, and I'm conscious of trying to stay away from noughts and ones. I mean, on certain songs that I've done, I know that, well, for it to be authentic, I need somebody involved who isn't going to give me noughts and ones. They're going to give me something that dances between them and more nuanced and stuff, So, that song is, for me, is like the embodiment of, it's all about the singer's performance and all about the delivery, the song itself. That's what makes it work. And there's some people I've worked with that don't get that, and that there's a tendency to gravitate towards it. Is it exactly in pitch? Is it exactly in time? The great performances are rarely that. Leave somebody feeling something afterwards. That's what I say.
If I could just add something, and in the spirit of keeping what I do genuine, actually, it's important, because we've been joking on me about synth digital music and stuff like that. I mean, my channel name, Lonely Rocker. I see there's been a few comments about me. I'm not actually that lonely. I got a family. I got good friends. Life's good.
Liar.
Lonely Rocker is. That's right. The tag of my channel is "You don't need a band to rock and roll." I leverage technology to make music by myself. Okay. Now I play guitar, I play bass, I do dabble in keyboards, I play drums, but I don't play drums at the level that I would expect or would want to for the type of music that I play. So I absolutely use digital tools to help create my music for me. Now, if I was releasing an album, I would redo all the drum tracks and get a real drummer on there.
Right.
If I was doing a release, okay. But the whole concept of what I do, you don't need a band to rock and roll. You can do it yourself if you're just looking to have fun, learn, make some music, and you can leverage technology to help you facilitate the desire to make music. Back to the one of the first questions you asked. Can you master? Can you mix? Yes, you can do all of those things. It all depends on what you're trying to do. So technology shouldn't be a crutch, and that's kind of what Ricky is saying. The feeling, the vibe of songwriting, that you don't want to rely on technology to do it for you. You don't want to rely on loops and sample packs to do it for you. I hate those commercials about sample packs. Oh, you're still original. It's bullshit. It's bullshit. But if you're like trying to write music, write your music. You can't fool anybody. If you want to sound like the pack, go ahead, be like everybody else. The last song was the simplest production of everything you played today. And I think we've talked about it the longest because I think it was, to me, was the most genuine. At least I could be wrong. That's the problem with today. You just never know. But we all share the same impression that there was honesty there. And I think that is the core of songwriting, is honesty. And because we know this industry is full of a lot of snake oil and con artists and stuff like that. But when you're genuine, it's hard to fake that. And I think that's the heartbeat of songwriting to me, is just honesty.
Very cool. And talking about honesty, I've honestly enjoyed having both of you on the show.
By the way, before I forget, I almost disrupted your live stream trying to get this. My apologies for that. I am packing. We are moving, and I'm trying to purge here. As my wife says, we're not purging enough. But I found something in a box I want to show you.
Yeah, go
it's gonna age myself when I show this to you. Let me get this in focus here.
Was a CD? Oh, look at that. That could be quite valuable one day.
That's still when Creative was bundling that with their Sound Blaster sound cards.
Yeah. SB16. Do you remember that?
That might even predate you, and that's saying a lot there, Mike.
Whoa. So, folks, about Dan's channel, I said you should visit his channel. Well, only if you're really desperate. No. But talking on that, again, I'm going to remind people, do follow the links in the descriptions to Dan's channel. What I love about his channel, it's great. It's straightforward. He is kind of who he is on it. And especially, I'm not going to say it's just for beginners, because it does go beyond that. But if you are a beginner and you just want some really straightforward advice on a few things, and especially if you're a guitarist as well, then it should definitely be in your subscription list. In terms of Ricky, again, I just want to remind people there's a link in the description for the Facebook group that Ricky runs. It is the best Facebook recording group in the whole cosmos, we're going to say, at this point. And
Thank you.
But on a serious point, Ricky mentioned earlier that he set out to make it a sort of a welcoming place with a good vibe. And
Helpful.
non-toxicity, and he, in my opinion, achieved that goal. And it's what I thought about that group, that Facebook group, before I even heard that was his goal. So that really proves that you achieved your goal. I hope it continues to be like that. My favorite Facebook group for recording. So everyone get in there and join in there for sure. Follow the link in the description. And I've already updated. No problem. I've already updated the description with the links to the 5 songs that we've listened to today as well. Musicians can be a little bit egocentric at times and only be interested in their own music. But I hope that we do at times feel a bit of a part of a community, even though we're in all kinds of different parts of the world. And part of that just involves you taking a little bit of time out of your day to listen to someone else's work, okay? Yeah. And even if you decide you don't like it for some reason, you'll learn something about what you don't want to do in the process, and it's really good. I've thoroughly enjoyed listening to all the music here today, and I've definitely enjoyed having these 2 gentlemen on the show. People that I've got to know in the last couple of years through what I do, and that's one of the blessings of what I do, is some of the people I've got to know, because you both are people I regard as friends. And just awesome all-round guys, and beyond anything to do with music. So it's been a pleasure to have you guys on the show. Absolutely love what you do. And finally, the biggest thanks goes out to those people that I've seen in the chat through this whole almost 2 hours now. Just amazing support, guys. Thank you so much. The support I get on this channel is incredible. I never take it for granted. I feel eternally blessed to be able to do this, not as just for fun, but as my job also, which is just ridiculous that I'm able to do that. So thank you, guys in the chat, and for people who are watching the replay as well and have made it to the end of this extraordinarily long video. You are wonderful. Thank you so much. Guys, I'll leave it to you to say your last goodbyes.
Well, I want to thank you. You're bigging up me and Ricky, but we have to say that Mike is probably, next to me, probably the most genuine YouTuber out there. Honestly, you're a solid, good human being, and you love what you do, and that's obvious, and it's infectious. And I can say the same thing about Ricky. That look at that smile. Like, I mean, you can't fake that. And it's my honor to be in the presence of you 2 guys, and I genuinely consider you both friends. And it will be in person one of these days. We have to make sure that happens. I know you're kind of far away, but
absolutely.
That's got to happen one day.
Yeah.
We'll get together and celebrate our queen together. And finally, I'm just going to put a challenge out there for Dan. Looking forward to your next EDM track, mate. I know you did one.
Hey, I did a beat.
You did a beat.
Video didn't do that well, but you know what? I had fun. I gave it a shot.
Good on you, man. Thanks again. Thank you again, Ricky. And hopefully we'll get you guys back on the show another time. And
anytime.
We can have some fun again. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you,
great
everyone.
fun today.
Goodbye. Cheers.
See ya.
Bye. I don't know if we're gone yet. The little button's spinning.
Why not?